Hey everybody, welcome back. Tony again here with Shinsho Yoga. And for this week's video, I'm going to talk about a TV show, an episode of the Twilight Zone. No, the channel is not changing over to being about movie reviews. It's an episode of the Twilight Zone that I've always really enjoyed, and especially as I became a teacher, that really spoke to me. And I think it has an excellent message for all teachers, yoga teachers, any type of teacher. I think it's a wonderful message for them. I rewatch this episode 3 or 4 times a year, or any time that I get down about teaching, thinking, hey, I'm not making a difference. I'm not doing anything. Well, what I say doesn't matter. And I rewatch this episode, and every time it makes me feel better, and it helps keep me going. So, for all teachers out there, this show, this discussion of this show is for you. Of course, anybody can watch. If you have never seen this episode of The Twilight Zone, I'm going to tell you about it. So if you want to watch it first, go right ahead. The episode of The Twilight Zone is called The Changing of the Guard. And I believe it's from one of the last seasons of the show. And the show it revolves around a professor by the name of Professor Fowler, who played by Donald Pleasance, wonderful actor. And he has been a teacher at this school, this boys' school, for 50 some odd years. And he's, respected in the school. Although the students call him Weird Beard, they do respect him for who he is, because it's very clear he cares about the children in this school and it's a boys' school, turning these boys into young men, into responsible members of society. So it's opened with him in his class in the school, and you see he's kind of stern, but then as it goes on in the class, you see that he really cares for the children, cares for the boys, and wants them to do well. So when the class is dismissed, he gets called into the headmaster's office. And he goes in the headmaster's office. It's just before Christmas, and they're talking. And as he's talking with him, he mentions the letter that he should have received from the board and this and that, and Professor Fowler says, I'll be on, here forever, this weird signing of contracts, it doesn't matter, I'll never leave the ship, this and that. And the headmaster says to him, there's a misunderstanding. That letter that you received that you haven't opened is a letter of retirement for you. You've reached the retirement age, long past it. And we feel that it would be best if the youth was served, and as title drop, a changing of the guard was done. And of course the teacher is taken aback by that. He's completely floored, because this was his life, was teaching. And this was in the way it's presented, the headmaster is very mechanical about it and how he presents it to him. It's just very matter of fact. And he says to him, though, you should hear what was spoken to you in the board, a teacher of incalculable value, that all you've done for the years, and, your retirement at half salary, it'll be a great thing. And so Professor Fowler, very stunned, leaves and says, it just shows that, a man should read and open and read his mail. So he goes home. And he has a maid to help him, and the maid is going to bring him dinner. He's sitting in his study listening to the radio. And he's looking through old yearbooks, and the maid is looking at him, he wants dinner, and he starts going on about students, mentioning students' names, and, how these were such phenomenal students, and they were, some of the traits they had. And then he goes into that I've made no difference in their lives. I've made my mark on no one. I've gone through all these years teaching by rote to unhearing ears, and that I'm nothing but an abject failure. And tells the maid, I would just like to, hold the dinner off for now and go take a nap. And he wanders out of the room, and as the maid starts to clean up the room, finds his desk drawer unlocked with the revolver he had in it missing. And she comes out, and he's wandered out into the snow. The next shot is then of him standing in front of the school, in front of a statue of Horace Mann. If you are familiar with Horace Mann, he wrote The Art of Teaching. It's a book, if you haven't read it, a wonderful book that I would highly recommend. Short read, but packed with knowledge. And the quote on the statue says, "Be ashamed to die until you've won some victory for mankind." And Professor Fowler pulls out the pistol and says, I am ashamed to die. And he's about to kill himself when he hears the school bell ringing. So befuddled, he wanders into the school, and this is where the Twilight Zone takes over, and he wanders into his classroom and sits down at his desk. And all of a sudden, all of these students appear, right? Ghosts, you could say. And he doesn't know what is going on, and they start talking to him, right? One of them comes up and says to him, hey, I wanted to show you this. This was the Congressional Medal of Honor I received during World War II. Right? And he's like, I remember you just, and you were at Iwo Jima and you stormed the beaches and this and that. And he goes, yeah, and I was killed there. And then another man comes up and says, if you don't, I don't know if you remember me, and I was in this class, and I was studying X-ray treatment for leukemia. And he says, oh, Professor, I says, yes, I know you were exposed to X-rays yourself and contracted cancer and died. It's like a very brave thing. And he tells him, yes, but there's a poem that you read to me, No Man is an Island, right? And he talks about it. And that was with him, and the man who was killed at Iwo Jima said the same thing, that you were at my side. You were the one who taught me about courage and patriotism. And then another one comes up who was a man who was killed on the Arizona and USS Arizona during World War II, and he had saved 12 men before he drowned. And he talked about how, again, another poem that he had given him that was with him forever, that he had taught him. So he goes around the room, and they all do this. They all tell him, these are all people that have passed away, but passed away courageously, heroically, and they all he had given them something. Something about heroism, something about courage, something about patriotism, something about doing what is right in life, right? And they said, in the end, they say, I have to go. Now we can't stay, but we wanted to know what a difference you made in our life. And then they all fade away. Next scene is he's back at his house eating dinner, and he's in a much better mood, and he says, I may not have won the battles, but I have left my mark with people, or participated by leaving them knowledge that they were the ones that fought the battles, and by proxy I helped do that. And that's the end of the story. So what's the point, right? Well, as teachers, you can often feel that you speak upon deaf ears. Are you just saying the same things over and over? Are you just repeating things that you've heard? Are you actually reaching anybody? Are you actually making a difference? Or are you just going through the motions? Are you just, getting up every day and going and doing what you do, and then hopefully getting a paycheck for it or paid for it, and you go home? Is it just wash, rinse, repeat, or are actually you making a difference in people's lives? Because I'm assuming if you're a teacher, that's why you did this, or maybe you're a school teacher and did it just to get time off in the summer. But if you're teaching yoga, you're definitely not doing it for the money. It's a reminder about the seeds that we plant, that every chance we have with students is a chance to plant seeds in their life. We talk about it in Buddhism. We talk about the mind being a garden and how we want to water the good seeds, right? We water the seeds of love and happiness and understanding and compassion, but we don't water the seeds of anger, hate, or jealousy. And that's what we want to do with our students, right? With our students, little by little, we plant these seeds and we water the good seeds. And they may take a long time to sprout, right? They may not sprout in our lifetime. We may not see them sprout in these people. But we still have to water those seeds. We still have to plant the good seeds. That's our job, right? We may not see the outcome. We may never know if we make a difference, but we have to be authentic and genuine in what we do and continue to water those seeds in our students, regardless of the outcome, right? It doesn't mean that we don't adjust as we go along. I'm not saying you just put blinders on and go ahead. I'm saying that you make adjustments as need be to your teaching to try to increase all of that. But as a teacher, you can't give up on that. That's what you have to do. And this episode always speaks to me. It always gets me. It always chokes me up. And it always helps me to continue. So I would offer that to you. If you are a fan of the Twilight Zone, or even if you're not a fan of the Twilight Zone, and you need, as a teacher, a little motivation from time to time to keep going, watch the episode in the Twilight Zone, The Changing of the Guard. It'll hopefully give you that motivation to keep doing what you're doing. So that's all I have for this week. As always, take from that what serves you, get rid of the rest, but don't take what's comfortable and get rid of what's uncomfortable, because we often need what is uncomfortable to serve us. Thanks again for watching. Namaste.